So about 10 years ago, I went on a vacation to the Atlantic Ocean beaches with one of my priest brothers, Father Scott. And believe it or not, even though I'm from Maryland, I never really went to the ocean. My family was we were Appalachian mountain people, so we went that way versus that way. And the kind of beaches that I was used to are the little lakes in the mountains that have little tiny waves. They still have sand. They look like what I would normally think of as a beach, and yet they were very gentle waves. And so it was very easy to just go into them and just let the waves just kind of go shh, shh. And so at that time, since fourth grade, all the way until I was a deacon, I had glasses. I have contacts right now. And so I would go into the lake with my glasses on because it's really easy to go into those kind of things with very gentle waves. And so I thought it was the same thing that happens when you go into an ocean wave. Because I didn't understand that ocean waves have a little more power behind them. And so I see the wave come, and I was like, oh, this is cool. It's just a bigger wave, but it's the same kind of force. So I had my glasses on, and I pretended to be Superman, and I just kind of went right into the wave, and the wave just kind of rocky punched me, and I fell back, and my glasses went somewhere. Someone probably wears them now. And all of a sudden, I'm blind. I can't see, because my vision is like maybe here. And so if I don't have my contacts in, everything around me from this place forward looks like a Monet impressionistic art piece. So sometimes it's actually really cool. I take my contacts off and I'm like, whoa, this is really, really cool. It's like an art gallery. And then I put my glasses in, or my contacts in, it's like, oh, okay, here's another way of looking at the world. People who have glasses or contacts, you know what this is. It's a kind of a cool little back and forth into two different worlds. But it doesn't work when you're trying to help your brother priest navigate himself through the middle of Washington, D.C. in order to get to my home. And if anyone's ever been to Washington, D.C., it was not built for cars. And it definitely wasn't built by Midwesterners. Because in the Midwest, you guys are smart. You go like this, and then when you need to turn, you go like that or like that. But in DC, it's kind of like this. Like that. And it doesn't make any sense. So you have to really know how to drive as a DCer. So I'm blind. My priest brother doesn't know how to get to my home. And I'm trying to navigate through impressionistic art. And I'm like, I think we're supposed to turn right there. There's a wall there, Father Andy. Okay, don't turn there. Maybe we need to go this way. It's a one way, the opposite way. And so we took hours and hours just going all over DC, and finally I was able to get back. So why do I share this weird story is the whole idea of the blind leading the blind. And I lived it. And yet, in order for us to really know how to get home, and not just physically home, but home to where we were made, home to where our heart has been looking for, we need someone who can see. And the fact of the matter is, all of us, in some way or another, are like living in a funhouse. We have distorted mirrors, and we're looking at things and we're really convinced about it, but it's out of proportion. The only one who can really see clearly is Jesus, because he's the light of the world, and in him there is no darkness at all. In our eyes, we have mix of light and shadows, and so it can play tricks on us, and we can get confused. And maybe we think we're going home, but maybe we're actually going into a wall without even realizing it. So today we have Samuel, who the Lord had to open his eyes to see David and who he was, the future king of Israel. We see in the second reading this powerful prayer that St. Paul prays, saying, "Awake, O sleeper, arise from the dead, and Christ will give you light." So how do we awake? It's actually here, right at the Mass. And this is why our country is going through this national Eucharistic revival. It's to learn how to see, so that we can get home and that we can help others around us navigate correctly to get home as well, to the Father's house. Now, here's maybe an image jumping from just physical sight. Think of something in this world that both gives warmth, gives light to see, but it has this catching ability that if you're in close proximity with it, all of a sudden you will start having that light jump right into you. It's fire. So think about a fire pit outside. How do alive logs that are bouncing with fire and glowing, how do they fall asleep? Little by little, that log just starts rolling out of the fire pit. And what's going to happen once that log is a certain distance from the power source? It's going to start fading. And that glow will start to take on the color of the night around it. And it will become blind. No Boy Scout could ever use that log where it is to be able to see how to roast their marshmallows, let alone be able to even have the warmth and heat to roast those. That's what happens to us at different times. Maybe through things that happen in our lives. Maybe it's just we get out of a habit. A lot of times it's just some little thing that just little by little we just find ourselves creeping away, and then all of a sudden we wake up, just like as Dante in the Divine Comedy would say, "I woke up in the middle of a dark forest. I don't really know where I'm at." Sometimes that happens to us. This is why we need the Mass and why our world needs the Mass. Is here we have a power source that never fades. He's the light of the world. And he doesn't need light to catch him on fire. He is the fire itself. Very much like how the sun is able within itself to create its own power. It doesn't, in a sense, take it from somewhere else. Jesus is that sun right at the very center of our community. And he's saying, "Awake, O sleeper, arise from the dead, and Christ will give you light." In other words, wherever you're at as a log outside of that fire pit, the Mass is the place that is actually pulling us through the readings, through the prayers, through all of these experiences. It's pulling us into the fire. And the beautiful thing about fire is that no matter how faded that log is, no matter how cold that log is, no matter how much that log has taken on the color of the night and darkness, the moment it comes in proximity with fire, it starts to glow again, like it never lost it. And it starts to catch flame. This is what the Eucharist is about. It's about coming into the very hunger of God, his thirst for your heart, and allowing that thirst to ignite your thirst and to blaze afresh. But then we're not just supposed to just stay there, just like we're not supposed to just stay in the mountain of transfiguration, but we're called to be launched out into the world, connected to that fire. So we still have a lifeline there, Because if we launch ourselves without being connected to the power source, what's going to happen to us? We're going to become the culture again. We're going to take on the chameleon look of our surroundings instead of being that light and that fire. And this is why the last part of the Mass is super, super important. In Latin, it's ita missa est. Missa, Mass, doesn't just mean a lot of people, a mass, but it actually is the word in Latin for missile projectile, which is really kind of cool. And I love how little kids are like, whoa, we get to be a missile? And I'm like, actually, you get to be, this is a strange image, a watermelon on fire in a launching pad that is getting ready to do a halo drop right into your neighborhood. That's a strange image. But think about that. Those watermelon launching things that are so, I would not try that at home kind of thing, but there's power in them. And what's happening at the Mass is you're like a watermelon man. You're being pulled all the way back through the power of the Holy Spirit. You're getting ignited with that fire. And when the priest or deacon says, go forth, the Mass is ended, the Holy Spirit's going like this. And you get launched into your family, into your school, into your workplace, into your neighborhood, to allow His fire to catch fire in that area. And it's a fire that doesn't destroy. It's not the fire of the world that wants to consume and destroy and make black, but it's actually a fire that makes us more alive. Because these are all the logs that are outside of the fire pit, and they need to get ignited again so that they can be drawn back to the source and continue that whole process. Do you see why? This is why we need the Mass in our life. Because our culture is very cold. And the moment we stop coming regularly to this power source, we start to cool down and we become the darkness. But with Him, there is no darkness that can stand against that light. And so become this Eucharistic fire of mercy, of love, of forgiveness, of truth, of honesty, of devotion to the heart of Jesus that burns for your heart, and be shot out into the world and bring that light.